The ice moon of had been silent for 7 rotations. Where once the howls of the pack echoed across the frozen valleys, now only the wind spoke through empty caves. The great hunting grounds that had fed the wolf-like aliens for generations lay abandoned, their crystalline formations catching the pale light of 3 distant suns. The pack's eldest hunter stood at the mouth of their ancestral den. His silver-blue fur had grown dull with grief, and his massive frame seemed smaller somehow. The scars across his muzzle told stories of countless hunts, but now they only reminded him of the pack members who would never hunt again. The plague had come without warning, a sickness that turned their cubs weak and lifeless, spreading faster than wildfire through their close-knit family. Within days, every young in the pack had fallen silent forever. 23 cubs gone, the future of their bloodline erased. His mate and the pack's spiritual leader had not spoken since they buried the last cub beneath the sacred ice formations. She sat motionless in the deepest chamber of their den, her golden eyes staring at nothing. The other surviving adults moved like shadows, going through the motions of existence without purpose. They were dying as a people, not from disease now, but from the weight of their loss. Without cubs to protect and teach, without the promise of tomorrow, what reason did they have to continue? His keen hearing picked up something unusual in the distance. A rhythmic crunching in the snow, steady and purposeful, not the quick patter of ice runners or the heavy trudging of frozen tusks. Something else entirely. He lifted his great head, nostrils flaring. The scent was alien, unlike anything in their territory, warm blood and determination, tinged with exhaustion. The footsteps grew closer, and predator instincts awakened for the first time in days. Through the swirling snow emerged a figure that made his eyes widen in disbelief. A human, barely reaching his shoulder in height, wrapped in crude furs and synthetic materials. The small being's face was hidden behind protective gear, but vapor clouds showed steady breathing despite the killing cold that would freeze most species solid within minutes. Humans were known throughout the galaxy, though few had ever visited. They were the newcomers, the strange bipedal species that had somehow spread across the stars in just a few centuries. Most civilized worlds viewed them with mixture of curiosity and caution. They were unpredictable, emotional, and had a disturbing tendency to survive in places where they had no business being alive. The human stopped 20 paces from the den entrance, close enough to be heard but far enough to show respect for territory. Slowly, deliberately, the figure reached up and pulled back the hood, revealing a weathered face with kind eyes and graying hair. "I know you can understand me," the human said in accented but clear. "My name is Sarah. I'm from the research station on 3. I came as soon as I heard." His growl rumbled low in his chest. "Heard what, small one? That we are broken, that our future died with our young." The human's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture. She reached into her pack, moving slowly to avoid triggering any aggressive response. "I heard about the plague that took your cubs. I'm sorry for your loss." The words hit like a physical blow. Sympathy from an alien was the last thing he expected. His people were proud hunters, apex predators who had ruled this frozen world yet this tiny human spoke to him with genuine compassion. "Your sympathy changes nothing," he snarled, but without real anger. "The young are gone, the pack dies with us." Sarah's next words made him step back in shock. "What if I told you that might not be true?" Before could respond, other pack members began emerging from the depths of the den. Appeared at his side, her golden eyes focusing for the first time in days. The scent of hope was dangerous to creatures who had learned to expect only loss. "Speak plainly, human," his voice was hoarse from disuse. "What do you mean?" Sarah opened her pack fully, revealing equipment that gleamed with advanced technology. Medical scanners, sample containers, and data tablets that showed complex genetic sequences. 3 months ago, our research station detected unusual energy signatures from your territory. We sent drones to investigate and found something incredible. Your cubs didn't die from the plague. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. "Impossible," whispered. "We buried them ourselves. We felt their hearts stop." "You buried their bodies, yes. But their consciousness, their neural patterns, somehow transferred into a crystalline network deep beneath your territory. The same crystals your people have considered sacred for generations." Sarah activated one of her devices, projecting a 3-dimensional map of the underground cave system. Glowing points of light pulsed throughout the crystal formations, each one representing a unique neural signature. The crystals aren't just pretty rocks. They're a form of quantum storage system, probably left behind by an ancient civilization. When your cubs faced death, their minds instinctively reached out and found sanctuary in the crystal matrix. Stepped forward, her massive paws leaving deep prints in the snow. You're saying our young still live in the stones? In a sense, yes. Their personalities, memories, everything that made them who they were exists in quantum suspension within the crystals. But there's more. Sarah's fingers danced across her tablet, bringing up new data streams. Human technology has been developing quantum consciousness transfer protocols for decades. We've successfully moved human minds between bodies, between biological and synthetic platforms. With some adaptation, I believe we can help your cubs return. The pack members looked at each other with expressions that mixed desperate hope with deep suspicion. This was beyond anything they had imagined possible. Why asked simply, why would humans help us? What do you gain? Sarah smiled, the expression transforming her weathered features. Because it's the right thing to do. Because losing children is the worst pain any species can endure. And because humans have a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Sometimes that village needs to include the whole galaxy. She paused, looking each pack member in the eye. But I need your help. The quantum transfer process requires biological templates, genetic markers that can only come from the cub's family members. It's dangerous, it's experimental, and there are no guarantees. What kind of danger? Protective instincts were fully awakened now. The process could fail completely. Worse, it could trap your cubs' minds in a state between life and death. And there's something else you need to know. Sarah's expression grew serious. The bodies the cubs would return to wouldn't be exactly the same as before. The quantum storage has changed their neural patterns, enhanced certain capabilities. They would be your children, but also something new. Felt the weight of decision settling on his shoulders. As pack leader, the choice was ultimately his. Risk everything on the word of a human stranger or accept that their bloodline ended here. He looked at his mate, saw the desperate hope in her golden eyes. He looked at the other survivors, saw the same desperate hunger for a chance to save their young. The choice was already made. What do you need us to do? Sarah's smile returned, brighter than before. First, I need to examine the crystal formations directly. Then we'll need genetic samples from all the parent pairs. The process will take time to set up, but if we're successful. Our cubs will come home, finished, her voice stronger than it had been in days. Better than that, Sarah said, shouldering her pack. They'll come home with abilities that could help your people thrive on worlds you never dreamed of reaching. The crystals haven't just preserved them, they've been teaching them, preparing them for something greater. As the human followed them into their ancestral den, the ice moon felt less empty. The wind still howled through the valleys, but now it carried something it had lost, the sound of hope. The pack that had been preparing to die was now preparing to fight for the impossible. And at the center of it all was a small human who had walked through killing cold to offer them a miracle. In the deepest chamber of the den, where it sat in silent grief, the sacred crystals began to glow with a soft, pulsing light. 23 distinct patterns, each one a young mind waiting to come home. The real work was about to begin. The sacred chamber had never seen technology like this before. Sarah's equipment hummed quietly as scanners mapped every facet of the ancient crystal formations. The watched in fascination as holographic displays showed the intricate quantum networks threading through their most holy site. Remarkable, Sarah muttered, adjusting her instruments. These crystals are more sophisticated than anything we've encountered. They're not just storing consciousness, they're actively nurturing and developing it. Crouched beside her, his massive frame dwarfing the human scientist. What do you mean by developing? Sarah pointed to a cluster of readouts on her tablet. Neural pattern complexity has increased by 30% since the transfer. Your cubs aren't just preserved in there, they're learning, growing, evolving. The crystal matrix is acting like a massive educational network. Padded closer, her golden eyes fixed on the glowing formations. Can you hear them? Can they hear us? Let's find out. Sarah made several adjustments to her equipment, then activated a translation protocol. The chamber filled with a low harmonic hum as the quantum scanner synchronized with the crystal network. Suddenly, the chamber erupted with sound. Not the physical voices they remembered, but something far more complex. Emotional resonances, thought patterns, and underneath it all, the distinct personalities of 23 young. Mother, the voice came from everywhere and nowhere, a symphony of consciousness that brought tears to sighs. Father, we're here, we're still here. The entire pack gathered in the chamber now, drawn by sounds they had never expected to hear again. Each parent could sense their specific cubs within the crystalline chorus, their unique mental signatures as distinct as snowflakes. My little star hunter, whispered a reaching toward a cluster of blue crystals. I can feel you there. We've been learning so much, came the reply, younger voices harmonizing together. The crystals showed us things about the universe, about other worlds, about abilities we never knew we had. Sarah worked frantically at her equipment, recording every quantum signature and mapping the neural pathways. This is incredible. The crystal network isn't just alien technology, it's a learning system designed to enhance consciousness. Your cubs have been receiving the equivalent of centuries of education in just a few months. But can you bring them back? Asked, his voice tight with controlled emotion. I believe so, but it won't be simple. The quantum transfer process requires us to create new biological vessels compatible with their enhanced neural patterns. Essentially, we need to grow new bodies for them. Sarah pulled up another set of schematics on her tablet. I've brought biosynthesis equipment from our research station, but I'll need genetic material from each parent pair and access to your people's medical records. Over the following days, the den transformed into a high-tech laboratory. Sarah worked tirelessly, combining human quantum consciousness technology with genetic material. The other pack members contributed however they could, providing samples and helping to modify her equipment for their physiology. The cubs' voices grew stronger each day, their consciousness more coherent as Sarah's machines interfaced with the crystal network. They spoke of wonders they had learned about, of star systems and civilizations beyond imagination, of mathematical concepts and quantum physics that amazed even the human scientist. They're not just our children anymore, observed as she watched the data streams flowing between crystals and computers. They're something new. Enhanced, Sarah agreed, but still fundamentally themselves. Their core personalities remain unchanged, just expanded. The real breakthrough came on the 7th day. Sarah's biosynthesis chambers had completed the first stage of body creation, producing cellular matrices that could host the enhanced consciousness patterns. But there was a problem. The bodies are stable, but they're different, Sarah explained to the gathered pack. The quantum enhancement process has changed how consciousness interfaces with biology. Your cubs will be stronger, faster, more intelligent than before, but they'll also be something that's never existed in the galaxy. Different how? Demanded. Sarah activated a holographic projection showing the new biological templates. They looked like, but sleeker somehow, with neural interfaces that glowed softly beneath their fur and eyes that held depths of intelligence that seemed almost otherworldly. They'll retain all their instincts and pack bonds, but with enhanced cognitive abilities and direct interface capability with technology. They'll be able to communicate across vast distances, process information at incredible speeds, and understand scientific concepts that would take others years to learn. Will they still be our children? Asked N, one of the younger parents. Before Sarah could answer, the crystal network pulsed with warm light, and the cubs' voices filled the chamber again. We will always be your children, they said in unison. But we want to be more. We want to help our people reach the stars, explore the galaxy, learn everything there is to know. The crystals have shown us what's possible. We want to come home, added young Ra, her mental voice bright with excitement. But we also want to show you the wonders we've discovered. The transfer process began at dawn on the 10th day. One by one, Sarah's quantum extraction protocols carefully drew the cubs' consciousness from the crystal matrix and guided them into their new biological forms. The first to return was N's eldest cub. The biosynthesis chamber opened with a soft hiss, revealing a form that was recognizably but somehow more. His fur held patterns of light that shifted with his thoughts, and his eyes glowed with an inner radiance. Mother, he whispered, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated through both sound and quantum fields. Father. Rushed forward, gathering her son in her arms. He felt real, solid, warm. But there was something else now, a presence that extended beyond his physical form. "I remember everything," said, nuzzling against his mother's fur. "Our last hunt together, the stories you told, the way Father taught me to track ice runners. But I also remember learning about pulsars and quantum mechanics and civilizations that exist in the spaces between galaxies." One by one, the other cubs returned. Each reunion was a miracle of joy and wonder, but also an introduction to beings who were no longer quite what they had been before. Young Elle could now interface directly with Sarah's computers, downloading and processing information at incredible speeds. Eth had gained the ability to sense quantum fluctuations across vast distances. S could manipulate electromagnetic fields with her thoughts. "What have we created?" wondered, watching his children demonstrate abilities that seemed almost magical. "Evolution," Sarah said simply. "Your cubs have become something new, something that bridges the gap between biological and technological consciousness. They're still your children, but they're also the next step in development." The pack gathered in their traditional circle that night, but the ceremony was unlike any in their long history. The cubs shared what they had learned in the crystal matrix, painting pictures with words of galaxies beyond imagination, of civilizations that communicated through pure thought, of technologies that could reshape reality itself. "We want to explore," announced, speaking for all the returned cubs. "We want to learn, to discover, to help our people become something greater than we ever imagined possible." "But we also want to remain a pack," added Ra, "to hunt together, to share stories, to be family." Looked around the circle at her returned children, each one glowing softly with inner light, each one forever changed but still unmistakably hers. "Then we hunt among the stars," she declared, "as a pack." The howl that rose from the den that night carried across the frozen valleys of, but it also carried much further. The quantum-enhanced cubs could project their voices across space itself, and their call was answered by the research station on 3, by passing ships in orbit, and by distant civilizations who suddenly heard something they had never heard before. The song of a pack that had been broken and reborn, ready to claim their place among the stars. Sarah smiled as she packed her equipment, her work complete. They were no longer a dying people mourning their lost future. They were pioneers on the edge of becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. And at the center of their transformation was a simple truth that humans understood better than most. Sometimes the greatest triumphs come from the greatest losses, and love can transcend even death itself. 6 months had passed since the cubs' return, and the ice moon had become the center of something unprecedented in galactic history. Word of the quantum-enhanced had spread through space-faring civilizations, drawing scientists, diplomats, and curious visitors from across the known galaxy. The ancient den had been expanded into a complex that bridged traditional architecture with cutting-edge technology. Crystal formations that once served only as sacred sites now hummed with quantum processing power, interfacing seamlessly with equipment donated by a dozen different species. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the new facility, watching the cubs demonstrate their abilities to a delegation from the Galactic Council. What had begun as a desperate rescue mission had evolved into something that would reshape relations forever. "Incredible," breathed Ambassador, his crystalline form refracting the light from the cubs' bioluminescent fur patterns. "They're processing quantum calculations that would challenge our best artificial intelligences." Young floated several feet above the ground, his consciousness directly interfacing with the facility's navigation systems. Around him, holographic displays showed real-time stellar cartography of previously unexplored sectors of the galaxy. "We can sense quantum disturbances from 17 light-years away," he reported, his voice carrying both the excitement of youth and the wisdom of expanded consciousness. "There are 3 civilizations in the Helix Nebula that have been trying to establish communication protocols for centuries. We could help bridge their linguistic barriers." Watched his son with a mixture of pride and amazement. The pack leader had adapted to the changes better than he had expected, but moments like these still left him breathless. These were his children, but they had become something beyond his wildest imagination. "The Council wishes to offer formal recognition to thee as a Class A sentient species," Ambassador continued, "along with full membership rights and access to advanced technology exchanges." "We appreciate the honor," replied diplomatically. But our cubs have made us aware that traditional classifications may no longer apply to what we've become. She was right. The enhanced cubs had simple species categories. They were biological beings with technological consciousness capabilities, pack hunters with quantum processing powers, traditionalists who could manipulate reality at the subatomic level. We've been discussing this among ourselves, Ra interjected, her mental voice carrying across both sound and quantum frequencies. We want to establish something new, a cooperative of enhanced beings dedicated to exploration and discovery. You're talking about leaving? I asked, concern evident in his growled words. Not leaving, corrected. Expanding will always be our den, our home base. But the galaxy is vast, and there are so many wonders to discover, so many civilizations that could benefit from what we've learned. Sarah smiled as she listened to the conversation. This was exactly what she had hoped for when she first walked into that grieving den 6 months ago. They weren't just surviving their tragedy, they were transforming it into something beautiful. There's something else, Elle announced, her quantum-enhanced senses detecting something the others had missed. Ships approaching from the Andromeda vector, unknown configuration, possibly first contact scenario. The entire facility shifted into alert mode. First contact protocols were always delicate, requiring careful diplomatic approaches and extensive translation efforts. But the Cubs had already begun working. We're receiving their communication attempts, Ed reported, his consciousness extended across multiple quantum frequencies. Language matrix is complex, but we're establishing baseline translation protocols. Within minutes, the Cubs had accomplished what usually took months of careful linguistic analysis. The approaching ships contained representatives of the collective, a civilization from beyond the galactic rim that had been searching for intelligent life for. They've been alone, S whispered, her empathic abilities enhanced by quantum consciousness allowing her to sense the emotional resonance in the alien communications. They're the last survivors of their region, searching for others like themselves. The weight of that revelation settled over the assembled group. They were facing the same kind of existential loneliness that they had experienced when they thought their cubs were gone forever. We need to help them, declared, speaking for all the enhanced cubs. We know what it's like to face the end of everything. No one should have to experience that alone. The pack exchanged glances, pack instincts and parental pride warring with concerns about their children venturing into the unknown. But as Sarah watched the family dynamics play out, she realized something profound was happening. The Cubs weren't asking permission to leave. They were inviting their parents to join them on an adventure that would take the entire pack to the stars. The ships are equipped with quantum consciousness interfaces, Elle reported. They've been developing technology similar to what we've become. We could establish full communication within hours and begin cultural exchange immediately. Ambassador's crystalline form flickered with excitement. This is unprecedented. First contact mediated by quantum-enhanced consciousness with perfect translation and cultural sensitivity protocols. It's what we were meant to do, Ra said simply. The crystals didn't just preserve us and enhance us. They prepared us for this, to be bridges between civilizations, to help species understand each other across the vast distances of space. The first shuttle arrived at the facility 12 hours later. Its occupants were tall, graceful beings with translucent skin that showed bioluminescent organ systems beneath. They moved with the fluid grace of creatures evolved in low gravity, and their eyes held the depth of a species that had seen the rise and fall of galaxies. The moment of first contact was unlike anything in recorded history. Instead of cautious probes and careful diplomatic exchanges, the representatives found themselves in immediate, deep communication with beings who could understand not just their words, but the emotional and cultural context behind them. Your young ones are remarkable, the leader, Ra, said through the quantum translation matrix the Cubs had established. In our travels, we have never encountered consciousness that could bridge the gap between biological and technological existence so seamlessly. They are our gift to the galaxy, replied, his parental pride evident even through species barriers, and our greatest hope for the future. The cultural exchange that followed over the next several days revealed astounding parallels between the two species. They had also faced near extinction, also struggled with the balance between tradition and progress, also wondered if they were alone in the universe. But more importantly, they possessed knowledge and technology that complemented what the Cubs had learned from the Crystal Matrix. They were master engineers of biological systems, capable of creating living ships that could traverse galactic distances. The Cubs were masters of quantum consciousness, able to communicate and navigate across impossible distances. Together, we could explore regions of the universe that neither of our species could reach alone. Ra proposed during a formal dinner that combined hunting traditions with nutritional requirements. The Cubs' excitement was palpable, their quantum fields literally glowing with anticipation. We could establish communication networks between isolated civilizations, said, create bridges of understanding across the galaxy. A star pack, mused, using traditional hunting terminology for something entirely new. Hunters of knowledge instead of prey. Sarah felt a deep satisfaction as she watched the negotiations unfold. The grief-stricken pack she had found 6 months ago had not only recovered their children, but had become the catalyst for what might be the most significant advancement in cooperation in galactic history. "There's one more thing," Ra announced, her quantum consciousness touching something beyond the immediate gathering. "The crystal network on isn't unique. We're detecting similar formations on 17 other worlds scattered throughout the galaxy. Ancient consciousness preservation systems waiting to be awakened." The implications sent shockwaves through the assembled diplomats and scientists. If other species had experienced similar preservation events, if other enhanced beings existed in quantum suspension across the galaxy, then the Cubs might not be unique after all. "We want to find them," S declared. "We want to awaken them, help them return to their people, create a network of enhanced consciousness that spans the entire galaxy." "The Great Pack," whispered, invoking legends from the oldest stories. "The hunt that encompasses all the stars." The formal announcement came 3 days later. The cooperative would be the galaxy's first joint consciousness exploration initiative. Living ships grown from biological engineering would carry quantum hunters to distant worlds, seeking out ancient preservation sites and isolated civilizations in need of contact and aid. The pack that had once prepared to die on a frozen moon would now hunt among the stars themselves, bringing lost children home to their families across the breadth of the galaxy. As Sarah prepared to return to her research station, she found herself standing once more at the entrance to the original den. The crystals still glowed with soft light, but now they pulsed in harmony with quantum networks that spanned light years. "Thank you," said, approaching her with the traditional gesture of respect, "for giving us back our future." Sarah smiled, looking up at the massive hunter who had become so much more than he had ever imagined possible. "You gave yourselves back your future. I just helped you remember that love is stronger than loss, and that sometimes the greatest tragedies become the foundation for the greatest triumphs." The howl that rose from that night carried further than ever before, transmitted across quantum networks to distant worlds and isolated civilizations. It was a song of loss transformed into hope, of grief that had become the catalyst for something magnificent. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, on forgotten worlds where ancient crystals held the dreams of long-lost children, that howl was heard and answered. The star pack was calling, and the galaxy would never be the same. The grief-stricken wolves had stopped mourning and started hunting among the stars themselves, carrying with them a human truth that had become universal. No one should face the darkness alone.